We're going to move forward now to our next segment. And what we're moving to is Trailblazing the Pacific Northwest and Chicagoland. And, we're going to have two of our members who own our work group, Craig R. and David W. And we're going to change the format a little. They're going to have some actual conversation with Jackie J from Portland, Oregon, and Burney, Marla, and Benny L from Chicagoland, and get the essence of what's happening there. And Craig is going to interview and talk with and have some conversations with Marla RH and Burney and Benny L from Chicagoland. And Jackie, thank you for your presence. I see the smiles. I've been watching you since we've been in here. I'm looking forward to hear you talk a little bit more about the venture that happened out in the Pacific Northwest. So we're going to open it up. We changed the format a little from what we had, but stay. And yes, we are recording this, but not for distribution. We're actually evolving and capturing the history, because this is a part of carrying the message. This is very important. So I want to defer to David and Craig and the other participants, and thank you again for.
Thank you, Ron. I'm an addict in recovery. My name is David Whiters. And Craig, is it okay if I go next, or we can just kind of tag team?
Yeah, David, how about, yeah, David. I'm an addict named Craig. Cool. David, why don't you tell us where you're from, first of all, man, before you
just
go.
Okay, cool. I'll do that. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. This is where I started my recovery, and this is where I live. And if I could real quickly, I just want to thank Tom for that awesome share, and Kathy B for that awesome share. And it was emotional for me. I just want to say real quickly that in 1988, I was elected the alternate RSR for my region. And back then we had these WSC quarterlies, and I went to a quarterly. My first quarterly was in Miami, Florida. And that's where I met Bob. And I remember he just walked up to me and gave me this big old hug. And at the following year's conference, he had given me his number, and I called him. I wasn't really expecting him to answer the phone or remember who I was. Not only did he remember who I was, but he came to the conference and picked me up and took me to the meeting in the hood in LA, where I met more Black people in NA than I had ever seen before at one time in my whole life. So yeah, that was real special hearing that about him. But yeah, Craig, you can just do your thing, and then we'll just kind of interview them. We'll start interviewing the participants. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's fine, Dave. I'm an addict named Craig, and thank you everybody for being here today and giving us a chance to just have this conversation. And the key word is conversation. We're not really here to tell anybody what to do, how to think, or anything like that. We're just here to have this conversation and to, as Ron was alluding to, just illuminate some things and bring out that untold, unspoken, sometimes stories that don't get told, but have made such an impact and contributions on the growth of NA, not just in the United States, but around the world, and certainly in the community that I'm from. I've been clean 34 years. I just celebrated this week, and I got clean in Raleigh, North Carolina. And this weekend, I'm coming at you, though, from Buffalo, New York. I'm here for a service weekend in Buffalo, New York. So if you're in Buffalo, come on by the Sheraton Hotel. That's where we're at this weekend. And I'm here just being of service and hanging out with some service people. So we get a chance to bring this to you guys, not just today, but in the future, and just hope we want to build on what we're doing today and just have it in different formats and those kind of things. So we've got a couple of people here today. I'm excited about this conversation, and we wanted to be just informal. So Jackie and Marla and Burney, you can expect David and I. David and I have been friends for a long, long time, and so you can expect us to kind of just play off each other a little bit and just to, bring some things out from you guys. So give us the juice. Don't hold nothing back. Just give us some of the backstories, right? And some of those things. So, hey, David, I'm just going to kick it back to you, man.
All right, yeah, let's do it like this. Jackie, why don't you start? Remember now, I think there's 4 of you. We have right at 55 minutes. So if you could just share with us the short version of what it was like in the Pacific Northwest, being like one of only a couple African Americans, I guess, in recovery in NA during that time. Harry, by the way, was a friend of mine. I went to the World Convention in Portland. And I actually went to your clubhouse in Portland a couple times. And I remember when we hosted the World Convention in Atlanta, there was a congregation from Portland who came. So yeah, I'm excited. So won't you just take a couple minutes? We'll let you go first. Make sure you let us know how much clean time you have and just give us the brief history of your experiences in Portland.
My name is Jackie, and my clean date is January 2nd, 1976. Hail from Portland, Oregon. I got clean in Portland, Oregon. Actually, I come from Eugene, Oregon, where there wasn't really no black folks. But as people started getting clean in Portland, Oregon, we decided to do something that we'd never heard of anybody else doing before. There was a group of us that wanted to start an African American meeting, like Kathy talked about earlier, but we wanted to start an African American meeting. So I called Jimmy Kay. I called World Services Office to ask them if we could do it. And so Jimmy Kay gets on the phone. I don't know who he is at that time. I didn't know who he was. And I asked him, I said, okay, you're from the World Service Board. Can we have a Black NA meeting? You know, because a lot of folks in Portland were skittish of mixed integrated meetings and all that stuff. And Jimmy Kay said, he said, first of all, you know who I am? I go, no. He goes, I'm Jimmy Kay. Anyway, after I got off the phone, I realized who he was, but I didn't realize at the time. So, you know, he told us, he said it wasn't a good idea to do that because there's so much division between the races, and it wouldn't make sense to do a meeting like that because we'd be leaving folks out, like Kathy addressed earlier. So we didn't do it, but we knew that if we didn't do something, that we were going to lose people because there were people dying in Portland all over the place. And I know most people think that Portland's just a little cowboy town and we ain't got no black folks in, but we got lots of black folks. So anyway, so we about 19 of us got together, and well, let me back up. I'm gonna talk about when I first got clean. It was just me and Harry W, and we had 2 NA meetings a week. You know, so we had to go to the Liquid Fellowship meetings all the time. And I know that people didn't want us in there. They were kind of racist. Many of them were just racist. Like I'd walk in the room and ladies would grab the purses and hide them and all that kind of stuff. I'm trying not to go to jail, okay? I'm not gonna steal your purse and all that stuff. But I think they thought I was gonna. So, but anyway, we went to those meetings. After a while, I just went because it made them mad, you know, that I was in the room. I thought I was trying to get even with my guests or something, you know, for the uncomfortableness they leashed on me. So, but as time went on, we started going to like conventions all over the place, and I was like GSR in Oregon, which was a regional committee member. Really is what it is today. It's a regional committee member, but back in the day it was the GSR. So I would travel all over the place and go to the convention and stuff. So I went to one in Canada, and they started for about 5 years, and so people would call and say, we want an NA meeting. And so Harry would drag me all over the place. I mean, I was like glued to him, like I was part of his body. You know, he'd tell me just shut up and get in the car type stuff. You know, I'd ask him where we going. He'd go, shut up and get in the car, man. You don't need to know nothing. Just come on. You know, so I'd go and he'd put the meeting together, and I'd be sitting there like some kind of idiot because I didn't know what was going on really. And then the meeting was starting. I get more comfortable because then I knew, but it was just strange to see all that stuff happening. And I think at the time I started hanging out with Harry, I had about 2.5 years clean, you know, when he was running me all over the place, in fact. And but Harry did, if it wouldn't have been for Harry, many of us would be dead in Portland, Oregon. Harry was we called him the Godfather because he was there for everybody. And he taught me how to be there for folks, man. And his legacy still lives on with me because I do exactly what he taught me to do. I'm busy all the time. I mean, my plate is always full, you know, and I keep on sponsoring people. I probably have 28 guys I sponsor, you know. I'm a chair on a committee. I'm trying to, you know, I'm just doing a lot of stuff, lots of stuff. related to Narcotics Anonymous because I love this program and it saved my life.
So Jack, let me to Jack.
Okay.
So I know you from sponsorship, man. So tell me a little bit about some of those challenges that you and Harry may have had, man. Because I noticed, just from my experience, some of the language that you called out a black NA meeting, or was it an NA meeting that happened to be predominantly black? Some of the challenges that maybe what you and Harry may have run into.
Well, initially when I went to Jimmy, when I went to the World and asked him, we were just trying to put a black meeting together because we felt like the clients that were coming in had very low trust. They didn't trust and they weren't going to stay around. So we tried to put that meeting together, but I think Jimmy was wiser than us. I think it would have eliminated a good portion of our strength and our unity in the fellowship. So we never did that. The meetings became very diverse, and it strengthened our recovery. I believe that, and it forced some people to move through their issues. The ones that didn't, they went back out. But the ones that could move through their issues and learn to get along with other folks were able to stay and get clean time. Now, our average clean time age in Portland is around, I would say, probably 29.8 years. Clean. I mean, we got a lot of clean time there. I know that there's about 3 of us that have 40 years or more, and then the body of them probably have about 30 years, and then 20 years underneath that. So we're getting a lot of clean time, but some of the barriers that we face are still, when we go places, people look at us funny sometimes. Portland is a very, very white place, and it has Native Americans, Mexicans, African Americans, Asian folks, but it's still a very white community, and so sometimes we get harshly judged, just for being ourselves. I would like to say it's getting better, but I think since 2016 it's gotten worse. I think.
Wow. Hey Jackie, can we do this? We're going to circle back around. There's going to be questions for you. There's a couple others we want to hear their share, and then hopefully at the end we'll have time to let folks ask you guys questions. Okay. Let's go next to Burney. Burney, why don't you share with us a little bit about what it was like in Chicago in the early days? You're muted, Burney. You gotta unmute yourself. There you go.
I'm Burney and I'm an addict too. Can you hear me?
Hey, Burney.
Loud and clear.
Okay. Thanks for inviting me to be part of this. I actually have a clean date 2 days from today, October 25th. It'll be 36 years.
Right.
When I was asked to share on this topic, of course, there are many surviving members in the Chicago region that have much more clean time than me. What I can share, though, in a unique way is that I'm an eyewitness to the beginning and transition of the Chicago Fellowship. The 3 key members who are responsible for the fellowship as a whole and the African American Fellowship I've had eyewitness contact with going back to 1975. Explains the suburb of Chicago in the fall of 75. The same time in September 75, I went into a long-term treatment program. I was given probation by a judge. I was on parole and I was given the option to go into a long-term treatment program, which then was 2.5 years minimum as an alternative to doing more time. So what happened while I was in that program, the house director of the facility I was in, ironically, was a Polish guy whose past history had been he was a white drummer in an otherwise all black jazz band on the south side of Chicago, and a heroin addict in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. That program had, the way it was set up is the staff and even third phasers had drinking privileges. His drinking privileges led him, and he became an alcoholic. So he connected with the AA 12-step fellowship. So at this time, it was in 1976, there was still only one NA meeting in the Des Plaines area. And somehow Bobby Matu. So by that time in 76, I was in the second phase, and I remember clearly, I'm one of those people who has a good memory of dates and details. And I remember he said that all the second phases, we want you to attend this new thing they're bringing into Chicago called NA. So it turned out I was a client in the very first HNI experience in Chicago, which consisted of, ironically, some white teenagers from the suburbs. That's who started our first meeting. I was about 25 at the time, and being in that program, which was a hardcore therapeutic correction behavior program where it was all about punishment and shaving your head and wearing signs and digging holes and filling them back up. I mean, that's the environment I was in. So being exposed to a meeting with some white kids from the suburbs just talking, I saw no connection in that helping me in any way. About that same time, the member who became my first sponsor, 50 years old, a classic hardcore street addict. And it's really amazing when I look back at it. Even though I couldn't connect with those teenagers, Richard bonded with them. So his clean date ended up being November 3rd, 1976. And by him bonding with them, he stayed involved from the time there was only one meeting. Now, in the transition in there, I was in and out of treatment from 75 to 85, basically. I went in and out of treatment for 10 years. I spent 3 calendar years in that long-term treatment. And then after that, the most I went was maybe 6 months on the street without being back in treatment. So all those years, I was a client, again exposed to H&I meetings by NA volunteers, but they didn't look like me and they didn't talk like me. On an unconscious level, I was seeing evidence that somebody was staying clean, because year after year, I'm back in these meetings as a client over and over. So that period from 76, when Richard got clean, to 83, in the fall of 83, Richard got together with one of the older members who was our first regional rep to the World Service Conference, Jeff B., started what became the first African-American meeting on the South and the West side. So he started a meeting on Sunday night on the South side. So my journey of going in and out of treatment finally brought me to, in 1985, I went to the second meeting that I made on my own, was a Sunday night meetings at what was called Billings Hospital. There was about 100, maybe 150 African Americans. It was a world I didn't know existed, and it changed my life. And Richard was there, and he came up to me at the end of the meeting and shook my hand. And I knew I'd be here from that point on, and I have been. I can really understand and relate to the importance of the message being carried by somebody I can relate to. And I was exposed to the early transition in fact, going back to Gateway House, the very first meeting, NA meeting in the city of Chicago took place at the Gateway House, Maze 1 on North Broadway. I was one of the volunteers. Well, I didn't volunteer, but I was sent there to help set up that meeting. And Gateway at that time made a requirement that to be a graduate, you had to attend those meetings. And because I didn't see where those meetings could help me, I didn't go and I didn't graduate, which is why it took me several more years to get clean. But Richard we called him the bridge that we all came across. Meetings regularly in September 85, there were 6 meetings in what is our area now. All of Chicago was an area then. We were part of the greater Illinois region, and the city was divided into districts. Honestly, a lot of it was along racial lines, the way it was divided. So the part of the city that I lived in and made meetings was called South City, which was the middle of the city. And in 85, we didn't have 7 NA meetings. We didn't have a meeting every day of the week. And one reason for that, more than anything, was that and this happened to all my peers, basically. Those who were really committed to staying clean graduated, and that's, I'm sure many of you can understand that term, graduated to the AA program. So there really was no motivation to start new NA meetings. And because we didn't have a Wednesday night meeting, I got involved in starting that. We didn't have an H&I committee, my sponsor committee. And during that first year, we started 3 H&I meetings, along with me being involved in starting a regular meeting. So in September '86, Chicago became a region. So the districts became their own areas. And what happened was a couple of examples that really, you know, is what Chicago is still about in a lot of ways today. Our area split in half Black and half white. They created an area of their own that didn't exist before. Ironically, our area, South City, within a few years grew to about 108 meetings in the early 90s. It just took off. And again, what showed the need for there to be meetings that attracted us. You know, I never got into that could have happened years ago had there been more meetings, you know, offered to attract us, because I want to leave time for some other people who were involved there. But I want to share about one thing that hasn't really changed in 36 years. I was part of the first regional committees, the H&I. I was on the region when it was first formed in '86. I was in the room when my area was formed in '86. I've been on the board of directors early in recovery, and it was one of many experiences where I was the only African American in the room.
Yes, yes.
I made it my mission to recruit more of us. And ironically, what happened, and this still continues today, as more of us came into those committees, fewer of the existing members who were white were able to coexist with us. For example, our convention committee today, probably for the last 15 years, has had an average of 1 white volunteer on that committee, an average, 1 if any at all.
Why do you think that is, Burney? Why do you think that is?
One is about, it's a power issue. We came into a fellowship where none of us were in decision-making positions. And as more of us came, I'll give you an example, the way I got on the board, and Marla, who's on here, was the first of our members elected to a convention position as co-chair of CRC3. The first 2 conventions we had were completely not focused on our participation. A handful of us went to those first 2. So as the third was coming up, a group of us went to our regional meeting in a protest. And our main issue was we wanted to have a Black DJ be able to play for 1 hour at our third convention. Because those first 2, the few of us that went after the main meeting, we went home because there was nothing focused for our participation. While we were at that meeting, I got nominated and elected to the board of directors. That's not what I went there for. Marla got voted as the co-chair of our third convention. Again, that's not why we went, but our going in there in force. There were about 15 of us. We forced a change. And that process started then, that as more of us came, fewer of the previous members who were white stayed involved. That's kind of the culture that still exists in Chicago, you know, from my experience.
Hey, Burney, would it be okay if we let Marla pick up from here? Because,
yes.
I mean, I know we want to hear from a women's perspective. And Marla, why don't you go next and just share what it was like for you early in recovery? And if you could you talk about the number of Black women that were involved, or the lack of number of Black women that were involved? And did that impact you in any kind of way? Did that give you an impression that you had a special purpose here in NA, maybe to stay around so that other Black women could become members of Narcotics Anonymous?
Marla, I'm an addict, and my clean date is 5/13/1986. I actually came around when Burney came around, because Burney and I knew each other before he got clean, before I got clean. And he went into rehab, and I was like, what did he break? I didn't understand what rehab even meant. And so he started making meetings, and he told me, so I'll give you a little juice here. He told me that if we were gonna go out, that we couldn't go, because I just wanted to go, you know. I was like, well, can we go to a movie or what? I get that you're trying to not use drugs and everything. I wasn't trying to not use drugs yet. But he told me we had to go to a meeting first. So whatever we went on a date, we had to go to a meeting first. I was like, just okay, get this shit over with. Let's just go to the meeting, whatever.
Y'all dating and hooking up. Go ahead, Burney. Go ahead, Burney.
We had to do.
Hey, Craig, two new zones.
I got to go to a movie or something, you know. But as a result, we went to a lot of meetings. At some point, Richard, I don't know who suggested that we kind of try to make some different meetings, since we were dating and we were trying to do recovery. And so I went to a lot of meetings on the north side, and I was trying to go to meetings, and then I go to the bar or do whatever I was doing. And so finally I got this epiphany, because originally I just came to the meetings to be supportive. My mother was an alcoholic. I didn't want any parts of that. She actually was instrumental in AA here in Chicago, but I didn't see myself like her, and I didn't want any parts of that thing. I wasn't that person. I wasn't an alcoholic. I didn't fall off the stool. Nobody had to pick me up out the alley, you know. So I didn't identify. So it was very important for me to find a group of people that I could identify with. I went to meetings on the north side, and there were a lot of young people, mostly Caucasian, and I was okay with that, because I could kind of identify with that group. But what I did not know, or what I did not experience, was the rhythm. You know, I didn't hear anybody talking Black, you know, what I thought was Black. And when I came to the South Side, there were a few women, not very many, but there were a few, and I tried to identify with those people. They quickly left. Who was that asked that question? Craig? There weren't a whole lot of women in NA, but here's what was happening, Craig. People were pulling us to the side like, hey, if you really want to grow, if you really want to do this thing right, you need to go to AA. And I was like, okay. So I tried a couple of AA meetings, but that wasn't my thing. I know people talk about that, you know, going to a lot of different meetings, but that wasn't me. It wasn't for me. I couldn't identify, and I consider myself pretty much an NA purist, if you will. But what I did was I did try to go to separate meetings than Burney. And so as a result of that, we both started some meetings, different parts of the city. And then I was able to bring a different flavor, because I was on the north side, and then making meetings on the south suburbs. And there were not a lot of women. There were not a lot of women at all. And the few women that were there, I didn't necessarily identify with that well. I was able to find a sponsor. She's been my sponsor for a long time. She's got a little more clean time than me, really just a little over a year. And then there was a woman who sponsored her. And basically she was pushed to NA from AA, where they said, look, they need some women over there. There are no women. And so you need to go sponsor those dope fiends, you know? And she actually came purposely to NA. We had to check her all the time, and she took it so lovingly. We'd be like, no, you can't say alcoholic and addict. And she finally got it to the point where she started saying just addict. And before she died, she had an NA meeting that was her home group. I love her, give her a ton of praise, because she helped us have some stability and some focus and some foundation, to be honest. I see my buddy over there with Craig. What's up, dude?
Oh, yeah, Louis,
Marla,
get on
how
in
you
there,
doing?
Louis.
I see Chris and Ron and Burney. Good seeing y'all.
Hey,
Hey, Louis.
So, you know, it was for us, it was a very challenging thing to stay clean in NA for women. There were mostly men, and they used the language that made you feel like you were outside of the circle if you did not shoot dope, you know, if you did not use heroin. There was this whole hardcore addict thing, and I was college educated, and I was, you know, I didn't use that drug, and so I had to find my own niche. And I think Richard, who was so instrumental, he kept telling me, just keep dropping the seed, because I was like, why do the women keep relapsing? Why do they keep going? Why aren't they staying? Why aren't the young people staying? And I kept asking him the question. He said, your job is to plant the seed. That's it. That's all. And I believe as a result, I think it gave energy to even some of the women, because there were women here before me, and some of them have actually even come back to the fellowship saying, hey, this was my home in the beginning. I even watched my sponsor get more involved in service work later on, because that wasn't their motto. That wasn't the motto. Was get a little clean time. Once you grow up, you come to AA. You get the real recovery now. And we started showing that you could get real recovery, right, in Narcotics Anonymous. And so I believe that it was our purpose to hold this together, even for our comrades, so to speak, our friends who left NA and now have come back to NA, or even sponsor people in NA, even though they got a portion of their recovery or the early portion in AA. I think we proved that you can get recovery in Narcotics Anonymous. I was listening to Burney, and I can't tell you what it felt like. I just really feel like it was just a calling that we didn't even know we were called to, because Burney Smith said it. We didn't go out there for that purpose. We were just trying to raise a little hell. We just wanted some music. We wanted to boogie, and they weren't playing no Black music. That's all we wanted, you know. And we had even a small group of Puerto Ricans who went with us, all for the same reason. We were just trying to get some real rhythm music. Come on now. And we got out there and we dragged some people with us. And as a result, they got involved. That's why we had the World Convention here in '93. Why we had a huge first group that was involved in that World Convention, because those same people were the people who we had pulled with us and pulled.
And Marla was the co-chair.
Yeah, I was the co-chair of the world. And it was, you know, we got that kind of cooperation because we literally dragged people. We got in cars and said, hey, so-and-so, come on. It wasn't, you know, Burney said his sponsor told him to come. He was, you know, whatever it was, he was voluntold. That's what I like to say. He didn't volunteer, he was voluntold. And that's what we were all voluntold. And that was exactly, I'm very proud to say I have probably, I don't know what, 15 women, 13 women who I sponsor, you know, who are more than 30 years clean. I'm talking about 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. I mean, I'm talking about real strong clean time. And we have very strong clean time in South City area. And I know that it was a result of us going to our pure language. When we stopped saying alcoholic and addict, when we started talking about using the NA language, and Burney can tell you more of those details about how that happened. But at some point, you know, at one point we didn't have NA books on our tables, and all of that changed. We just pushed those books aside, started using NA books, started using NA language, started talking about, and sometimes we were not very nice about it. We would stop people. Oh, hold it, in the middle of your comment, you can't say alcohol. We learned to be more loving and caring now, but
well, don't you think some of that, Marla, too, was the identification that you guys provided? Yeah, for, you know, because your story was like a friend of mine, and she was one of like, she complained. She was the only Black woman in our home group. And we told her, like, you keep coming. Because somebody else, another woman is on her way. She just ain't got it yet. She's going to see you. And then there's going to be two. It's that kind of identification.
Absolutely, Craig. And the funny thing is, they even gave my sponsees a little cutie pie name, but it attracted the other, seriously, you know, it attracted the other girls who felt like they had come in, they could be clean, they could dress up, they could be cute, they could still, you know, get this recovery thing, have a good time, live their life. You know, I've watched these women do wonderful, magnificent things with their lives, go to school, get married, have children, all that stuff, because we gave them a lifestyle that looked okay to be a part of. And that was huge.
Yeah.
Hey, Marla, did you ever have any experiences where you felt like you had to protect the women from the men in the fellowship? I mean, I've heard stories of sisters early in recovery who felt like they had to.
Horrible reputation. If any of them looked at my girls, oh, we had a problem. Call them out, you know. Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, yeah, I was notorious for that, because I think I heard the first speaker. What was her name? I've forgotten her name already.
Kathy.
Kathy B.
Kathy B. We were all in each other's lives in the beginning. Oh my God. They would call me in the middle of the night if they had a problem with their husband or some guy hit on them. I was going to get involved. You know, we had to vet everybody, you know. Oh my God. Yeah. You know, I don't have time for that anymore. I could care less. I can't do all that. But oh yeah, in the beginning, we were all in each other's lives. You know, I always tease my sponsor that I picked her husband. They're still married today, and I love him so much, both of them. But I always, you know, I was like, he's okay to date. I like him. I like him. Like I mattered. Like I mattered, really. But that's how close we were. That's how the love was, you know. We were just such a small little society trying to stay clean. And, you know, we formed our own little world. Now, if somebody called, I like what Kathy said, I would get in my car and I would drive to Fox Valley, which is like, 50 miles away. If somebody asked me to give a lead, I was often getting in my car, driving way to the north side, going to Joliet, going wherever there was a meeting to start. I remember sitting in meetings and taking my sponsees in Spanish speaking meetings where we couldn't understand nothing, but they wanted us to be there because they said if the women came and they saw other women, then they would get clean. I'm sorry, I'm getting teary-eyed, because we would go and we sit in those meetings and somebody'd have to translate for us, because we knew what it felt like to not see other women in the meetings. And so that was huge. That was huge for us to be an example for those, like she said, who were yet to be born. And I hear people talk about, man, you got almost 36 years clean. I always mark mine by Burney. He's 36, so that means I'm almost 36. And he's not till May, but I'm almost 36 now, you know. But that was so important for us. We got rocks thrown at us when we would go to the other side of the tracks, so to speak, you know. When we first started. Man,
let me ask the three of y'all something though. So the three of y'all, what are some of the common themes you got? Jackie and Burney and Marla, you know, the three of you, and being that, you know, instrumental, and you know, you had Harry and you had Richard. That I love that bridge, man, that he was. So what I mean, are y'all hearing any common themes in your communities?
Oh yeah, I am. I mean, you know, I think if it wasn't for the predecessors, I'm pretty sure people would agree with this. Many of us wouldn't be here today, and the fellowship of African Americans wouldn't have grown like it has. You know, it's huge now, huge. You know, so yeah.
Hey Jackie, in Atlanta, I go to these NA events that are predominantly African American, and I step back and I say, little do they know. I mean, just a few years ago, there were less than 10 of us in this community, and we made a pact that we were going to stay clean long enough to attract others. So yeah, they get the benefit from all this, but they don't know the backstory. They don't know what it was like, you know, 30 some odd years ago.
I could identify with what Jackie was talking about, because our first small groups were actually outside enterprises, Craig. They weren't even NA, but we were so devoted to just being together. We supported those outside enterprises until
Wow.
you know what? Y'all got to quit taking this money away from Narcotics Anonymous. We love NA more than we love being together. So we're going to have to figure out how to join the two together, get the money back to NA, and still be together as African Americans, have our music, have parties, have a good time. And that's what we did. We literally convinced them, or forcibly, I don't know which, combination of the two, but we shut down pretty much those outside enterprises to the point where we actually made one of the heads of those outside enterprises the chairperson of the first Wrecking Activity Committee, and it was strategic. We were like, he can't serve two gods, so if we get him over here, then he'll stop doing that, and it pretty much worked.
Yeah. What we did, we went to the county commissioners, and they gave us money to build this $14 million place. Because we kept statistics.
I've been to Portland. I've seen it. But keep going, Jackie.
And so we ain't taking no money from Narcotics Anonymous. We just used our head and figured out how we could get money. We kept records on who was attending our club, who was coming in there, and all that stuff. We took it to the commissioners, and they found the money for us, and we got this structure built. That's how that happened. We would never take no money from Narcotics Anonymous, never. Yeah, we kept it pushing. We just used our head. We understood. Here's what we understood. We understood that our people didn't have a lot of money at that time. They were just getting clean. So we had to do something, so we could have a place so they could socialize and not feel out of place when they came in and talked the way they talked, and the folks wouldn't be scrutinizing against them, oppressing them.
And you know what? That's just real close to, our vision statement that talks about one of those bullets about people being able to experience our program in their own culture and their own, their own language. And sometimes that's not a foreign language, right? That's just, like you were talking about, Marla, the cadence and the rhythm, and it's still Narcotics Anonymous, but it's people making it self-fit at who they are and adapting that to who they are, kind of thing, man. And it's still our program. It's still the same NA principles.
Yeah.
Yes. Well said, Craig.
And that was our goal. That was absolutely.
I'm sorry Benny didn't get a chance to get on here, but I actually got that when he was talking last time we were together on this platform. He was talking about that whole rhythm of how we talk differently, and that really did attract to me. I remember coming from the hospitals on the north side, and then coming to my first south side NA meeting at Jackson Park, and some dude stood up on a chair and cussed at us, and I was like, nah, this is the shit,
Yeah. One of the things that's been apparent about, one of the things that's clearly apparent about all three of your shares is there's this thing called culture. Like, for example, when I posted this flyer on my Facebook page, I had people attack me and say, well, this is not an NA event. We don't talk about race. And I said to myself, hopefully some people will show up and hear this. Because what's real is there is a thing called culture. I remember when I first served on our region, I wanted to be the activities chairperson for one simple reason. I wanted to play a song that Black people could dance to, because I was tired of trying to dance to Willie Nelson. And that's what we had. It's called culture. It's a set of principles. It's a set of beliefs. It's a set of practices that's specific to a certain group of people. We have our culture as African Americans. And that thing you talked about when NA started in Portland, white people would, or Burney said this in Chicago, white people would start to disappear. We called it white flight. The very clubhouse where I attend most of my NA meetings when I got clean was all white. Today it's 100% Black. I mean, they just left.
Yeah.
They just left. So
they did pretty much, go ahead. They did pretty much the same in Portland.
I think, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, we still have some diehard folks that do come and they love us, so. Yeah.
And I
I mean,
just
they're
personally
never gonna be
believe,
like us, but they love us,
Yeah.
you know. So,
I don't think it has to be either or. I think we can have all of that, man, because that's the tapestry of who we are as a fellowship, man, and allows us to reach more people. Like both of y'all, I know Burney and you, Jackie, talked about H&I and the importance of and what that meant, right? And being able to, it's like today when we have H&I panels, we want to take the full complement of who we are, black, white, young, old, blah, blah, you know, so people can identify and they're not coming into this separate fellowship. They're coming into Narcotics Anonymous. And it makes us strong.
That sounds good. And I hear you and I support you. That's not true in a lot of places. In Atlanta, we got a black NA and a white NA.
Well, here's what I'm saying, David. We got work to do. I'm just saying,
we do.
man. We got work to do.
Well, can I share an experience along those lines?
Go ahead, Burney.
And hopefully this is not what members still have to experience today. We went to a convention outside of Milwaukee, I believe in '87. And there were less than 20 of us African Americans at that convention. And the majority were young, they were bikers. And it was a very cold, unfriendly attitude just throughout the whole affair. And it came to a head that Saturday night, we went to the banquet, which we suited up and dressed up, and everybody else was wearing biker jeans and vests.
I was about to say, Burney, that was different. One thing. Go ahead, Burney. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So as we went into the banquet hall early, none of the tables had very many people. Some had none. And every time we tried, there was 6 of us. Every table we went to, the chairs would turn up and they told us the seats were reserved. And that just went on and on. So we ended up finding the only table we could sit at was in the farthest corner of the room. So this had been going on since we got there Thursday. So those feelings had been built up to me where I had to do something. I couldn't just sit there. So as the meeting was beginning, they said, anybody who'd like to read, come stand in front of the stage. So I was the second person in line. And the person in front of me got called up to read Who Was an Addict. So I'm next. And the member on stage looked at me. There were about 5 people behind me. And he picked somebody from the audience to read What Is the NA Program. I said, no. And I'm committed. I'm not going to just bow my head and sit down. And they actually left me standing there through all the readings. So now I'm really ready to just leave out the room and come back to Chicago. I've had enough. But on my way back to my seat, a young white guy from Chicago who had done service with me ran up and grabbed me and he said, Burney, we're not all like this, man. Don't leave. He was reading my mind. I was ready to go. And then Ron Crow ended up being the main speaker. And he shared about Chicago history. And I was able to make it through that night, but honestly, I think the same is true for Marla. I've never been back to Milwaukee since then.
Somebody mentioned that convention.
But this has been really good. I've heard Benny L share a lot of times, and I don't know how many people came here to hear him. He's an awesome share. Unfortunately, he just wasn't here for whatever reason. But those who showed up were the folks that the higher power wanted to be here. The message that got shared today is the message that the higher power wanted us to hear. This has been absolutely awesome. You guys are trailblazers.
And Benny is speaking at a convention in LA, so that's probably why he couldn't log on.
Okay, that's right. He did tell us that. And you guys are trailblazers. You're part of the reason why we have so many African Americans in Narcotics Anonymous. That's just reality. I want to thank you all for the awesome work that you've done, the awesome work that you'll continue to do, and just thank you all for being here. Craig.
Yeah, I just thank you, David. I want to echo what my brother David said, and like I said, David and I have been with each other for many, many years, and we fuck with each other every now and then. I'm especially about basketball, but I'm not even gonna go there, David. But anyway, look, thank the 3 of you, Marla, Burney, Jackie. Thank you so much. I think it just brings stuff to light, man, and help us have these conversations. Sometimes the difficult conversations need to be had. Sometimes. Yeah. I'm not saying that was what we set this up for, but look, man, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to me, we have to have some of those conversations, man, so that we support each other better. It doesn't mean that we're going to solve everything in Narcotics Anonymous. That's not what this is about either. But it is about celebrating those people that came before us and cut a path, man. And were, like David said, pioneers, trailblazers. I like what Kathy said about soldiers, because that's exactly that's the way I was brought up in NA, man. We were NA soldiers, and we were like on it, man. And so I really thank the three of you for helping cut a path for so many others, including me.
David,
thank you so much.
Craig,
Thanks, David.
Okay.
Burney, Marla, Jackie, incredible. The conversation. We need to continue to have conversations. We're going to move this forward. Just want to acknowledge, we can't clap right now, but let's do it like this. Let's acknowledge our speakers and for a great presentation.